Breaking in the last hour, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has announced tariffs on the United Kingdom and other European countries for their opposition to a US takeover of Greenland. The US President posted on Truth Social on Saturday that a 10% tariff on all goods sent to the US would be imposed from February the 1st on these countries: Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands and Finland, before it will be increased to 25% on June 1st. Well, he's accused countries of creating a very dangerous situation for the safety, security and survival of our planet after they sent a small contingent, quite small contingent of troops to Greenland to help Denmark prepare for military exercises. He added that the tariffs had to be imposed to protect global peace and security, and said they would remain in place until such a time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. Now, I'm going to come to the panel for reaction. I have got his full statement to read to you, which I think is worth you all hearing, because it is done, clearly it's probably at least spoken word for word by Donald Trump, and it's very interesting. But let's get the initial thoughts of my panel, and I'll come back to that statement in just a moment. Will, I'll start with you. What do you make of this attempted acquisition? If there's a business transaction, that's the way of putting it.
I am going to pull the curtain back, ladies and gentlemen, and say that when we came into the studio and we said that we're going to address this topic, I was a tad unsure of where I sit on this. I think I've clarified my thinking. I think there's a couple of things that will ground our conversation. Number one, any country can put any tariffs on whoever they like. That is within their rights. And many countries over the course of recent years and in history have put tariffs on different countries in order to achieve particular policy aims. This isn't unusual. And number two, Greenland would be more secure, and indeed the West would be more secure, if the US ultimately was responsible for the territory as opposed to Denmark. I think those two facts are indisputable, but we still have 3 hours to go on the show, so I guess we can't put a full stop on it yet. That, I think, is where we need to start.
Renee?
Yeah, I think this is really interesting, because I think what Trump is doing is behaving like a bully to some degree and bullying the rest of the nations. But actually, the reason that it's getting people so excited is it's going against this global world order that all of these countries, ours, America, believed that everybody was part of and nobody would ever rock the boat. And boy, is he rocking the boat. As I said in my intro, I can see why Greenland would be better placed with the USA's protection. I can see why the USA, and much of that will be financial, I agree, want Denmark. It's not just about the Golden Dome, but at the same time I can also just hear the wheels coming off of the coalition of the willing, as they go but the world order.
Yeah, Trey?
I think it goes beyond the world order. It's all about NATO. You know, he's talking about protecting the world from what he says is Russia and China, but he's actually gifting Russia and China probably the best prize ever, which is the disintegration of NATO. And I can't believe that anybody would defend this. I mean, we're supposed to be allies, and with friends like that, who needs enemies? I think it's actually very scary, but in some ways it's probably good, because at least now everyone knows what you're dealing with. I think it's horrendous. Yeah, absolutely horrendous.
You make a good point. I think there has been some hesitation in Europe in particular about accepting what is clear as day, which is really the US should not be treated quite as the ally that it was in the past.
Yeah.
That fiction is over.
Yeah.
We're in a world where the United States is muscularly and strongly protecting its own interests in the way that many other superpowers do, maybe behind closed doors a little bit more. We need to pursue our interests in the same fashion.
OK, let me read to you as best as I can. I might skip over some bits because it is 2 minutes long, this read, so brace yourselves or get a glass of wine while I'm telling you this, because I do think you need to hear it.
Glass of wine.
This is Donald Trump's Truth Social post about why they have seized... they're trying to seize Greenland. So Trump has said this on Truth Social: "We have subsidised Denmark and all of the countries of the European Union and others for many years by not charging them tariffs or any other forms of remuneration. Now, after centuries, it is time for Denmark to give back. World peace is at stake. China and Russia want Greenland, and there is not a thing that Denmark can do about it. They currently have 2 dog sleds as protection, one added recently. Only the United States of America under President Donald J. Trump can play this game, and very successfully at that. Nobody will touch this sacred piece of land, especially since the national security of the United States and the world at large is at stake. On top of everything else, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands and Finland have journeyed to Greenland for purposes unknown. This is a very dangerous situation for the safety, security and survival of our planet. These countries who are playing this very dangerous game have put a level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable. Therefore, it is imperative that in order to protect global peace and security, strong measures be taken so that this potentially perilous situation ends quickly and without question. Starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On June 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. This tariff will be due and payable until such a time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. The United States has been trying to do this transaction for over 150 years. Many presidents have tried, and for good reason, but Denmark has always refused. Now, because of the Golden Dome and modern-day weapon systems, both offensive and defensive, the need to acquire is especially important. Hundreds of billions of dollars are currently being spent on security programs having to do with the Dome, including the possible protection of Canada, and this very brilliant but highly complex system can only work at its maximum potential and efficiency because of angles, meets and bounds if this land is included in it. The United States of America is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark and/or any of these countries that have put so much at risk despite all that we have done for them, including maximum protection over so many decades. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has reacted on X, saying this: "We don't always agree with the US government, and in this case we certainly don't. These tariffs will hurt us. If Greenland is vulnerable to malign influences, then have another look at Diego Garcia." It's a good point. It's a good point. Leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, calls Trump's latest round of tariffs a terrible idea. And she says President Trump is completely wrong to announce tariffs on the UK over Greenland. People in both the UK and the US will face higher costs. These tariffs will be yet another burden for businesses across our country. The sovereignty of Greenland should only be decided by the people of Greenland. On this, I agree with Keir Starmer. And Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey has said Starmer's US policy lies in tatters. Trump is now punishing the UK and NATO allies for just doing the right thing. Time for the PM to stand firm against the bully in the White House and work with European and Commonwealth allies to make him back down from his reckless plan. OK, look, that's the initial reaction from our political leaders here in the UK. But let's cross now live to GB News' chief US correspondent and presenter, Ben Leo, for the latest. Ben, fill us in on what's the response in America.
Hi Alex, hi viewers and listeners. Interesting to hear Kemi Badenoch and the like backing Keir Starmer when he references the Greenland natives, saying it should be down to the Greenland residents, the locals, who decide their own future, and only them. Isn't it interesting? Funny, eh? So Keir Starmer doesn't have the same tact when it comes to the Chagossians, as Nigel Farage was just referencing to. He sold them down the river, despite their will to stay under British territory. So a bit of a two-tier Keir going on there for starters. This deal, this tariff, is a massive slapdown for the globalists from President Trump just 24 hours, and I don't think it's a coincidence, 24 hours after Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, probably the biggest globalist in the world, the former Bank of England governor, who went to China, cozied up to President Xi and hailed China as a more reliable partner than the United States. And also, by the way, muttering absolute nonsense about a new world order with Canada and China leading the way. So you've got the new world order stuff, you've got Mark Carney cozying up to the commies in China. Commies are going to commie, eh? And then 24 hours later, President Trump says, do you know what? I'm not having this. You've got the liabilities in Europe sending 1 or 2 troops to Greenland for reasons, as he describes, unknown. You've got Mark Carney going to China to cozy up to the commies there. I'm going to slap you guys with a 10% tariff. I've been long of the argument, Alex, listeners and viewers, that President Trump, for some of his faults and his bluster, and he's not perfect, so I'm not saying that, but to me it seems like he is the only person in the West at the moment trying to save the West from themselves. You've got Keir Starmer, who's selling off our own sovereign British territory overseas, and you've got the West generally not taking notice of warnings from the United States. There was a flurry of diplomatic cables which went out to European embassies, including the UK, some weeks ago about the future of Western civilization, warning that it could be under threat if European nations don't sort themselves out. Well, this is just the latest chapter of that. President Trump taking steps to not only secure America's future, but indeed at the same time the West as well. And at the moment, it only seems to be the Trump administration which understands what they're trying to do. Europe yet, some people in Britain even, not catching up to what's going on here. As I said, 24 hours after Mark Carney was in China with President Xi, muttering about the New World Order and calling China a more reliable partner than the US, we have this, Alex.
Yeah, Ben, I've got my full panel here. Of course, you know Saturday 5 well. We've got the full panel here who'd like to ask you questions. Perhaps I'll just start with this. Are we expecting to hear from the President of the United States about this anytime soon? Of course, we're still waiting for the Prime Minister to respond and other European leaders. But will we hear from the President of the United States? What's your best guess on that one, Ben?
Probably not today. He left for Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, the so-called Winter White House, down in Florida, a bit sunnier than Washington, D.C. today, where it's snowing. So he left D.C. last night. He's in Mar-a-Lago today. I guess he woke up this morning with the sunny climes of Florida with some delicious orange juice being poured and decided to slap down the globalists with that Truth Social post. He is booked for a day off, I'd call it. I don't think he has days off, but there's no press interaction booked for tomorrow. What's the time now in D.C.? 1:30 here, local time in the afternoon. Maybe you'll get something this afternoon or this evening, but there are no press events scheduled. So unless he posts further on social media, that's probably where you'll get it. And again, tomorrow, nothing scheduled. So maybe that will be it for the weekend, and he'll let the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, European leaders sweat over that post until Monday.
Hi, Ben. Ben, if Trump is doing this because of the threat from China and Russia, why is he the only leader in the world, so it seems at the moment, that can see the threat of China?
Hello, Renee. I don't. Hey. Well, again, this is just my opinion from my experience following US politics over recent years, the past 10 years, really since President Trump came on the scene in 2014-15. I don't think it's that European leaders don't see the threat from China. I think they admire, for a lot of things, what China are doing. Just look at the COVID pandemic. The whole reason, even Neil Ferguson from Imperial College, probably the worst scientist in the world who's always wrong, even Neil Ferguson wrote about the fact that lockdowns were, in essence, a Chinese Asian thing. It's a CCP thing, which they've done before. And he didn't think that people in Britain and Europe would accept it. The small people. We did. They did lockdowns, and that was a Chinese thing. I think they are in envy of what's going on in China with regards to social credit scoring, central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, the elimination of cash. So I don't think it's that they aren't aware of the threat. I think they probably, agree with a lot of what's going on in China.
Ben, you heard the responses from Farage, from Ed Davey, from Kemi Badenoch. How do you think this will play out in terms of UK domestic politics?
UK domestic politics. It sounds like Ed Davey, Farage, Kemi. It sounds like they're all on the same, singing from the same hymn sheet there, which is interesting. Really, domestically, President Trump is an easy sort of pinata donkey to whack every now and then. For the likes of Ed Davey, who, let's be quite honest, his tweet about Elon Musk yesterday just proves how low grade the man is. I think it's easy. He's an easy target for the likes of Ed Davey and so on. He gets him headlines, he gets him attention where otherwise he probably wouldn't get it. President Trump, for the most part, I know he has a sort of a public demeanour of respecting his friends in Europe, the European leaders. He describes Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, a very nice guy. But I think it's generally accepted here in Washington, D.C. that what's going on here in America is worlds apart. It's poles apart to the kind of level that they're operating at in Europe. That they are insignificant. Even Marco Rubio the other month was saying Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, when they got up to their podiums and virtue signalled about Palestine being recognised as a state, guys, you almost scuppered the peace deal. You're just absolute liabilities. You're not bringing anything to the table, and anything you did in that respect was prove yourself a liability by nearly scuppering the peace deal. So whilst President Trump on the surface has deep respect for the UK and Europe, I don't think he thinks really much of them politically.
Ben, you said something quite interesting there, actually, which I noted down. You said Farage, Kemi and Ed singing from the same hymn sheet. Do you think that this has sort of set a different precedent, the fact that those guys who really should be poles apart are kind of on the same page? Do you think, Trump has just gone too far in this instance?
I don't think he's gone too far yet. And for the record, I don't think that we will ever see a hostile US military takeover of Greenland. It just ain't going to happen. This is President Trump turning the screw, piling on the pressure on Denmark and indeed the European nations to sort some sort of deal out. I think that President Trump has delivered lots of surprises in recent years, not least winning in 2016, not least with some of the rhetoric and the words that he comes out with over the past decade or so. But I would be stunned if the US started sending Black Hawks, Chinooks, F-15s, Navy SEALs and Delta Force to Greenland with a hostile takeover. It ain't going to happen. This is all part of the rhetoric. He's turning the screw. And word on the street is that the figure offered to Denmark could be something akin to in excess of Denmark's entire GDP for the year, which is about half it'd be $700 billion, basically, the offer which the US could finally give to Denmark. I think that may be enough. The alternative is that the EU, with NATO, offers increased security protections for Greenland on behalf of the United States. And also, the other key point here, which we've not mentioned, is the absolute swathes of rare earth minerals in Greenland. Something like 70% of the entire rare earth collection on Earth is in Greenland. So it may be that they get increased NATO security guarantees and President Trump gets first dibs too on some of those rare earth minerals which are yet to be extracted.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Sorry, Kai. Well, I'm sure we'll have more discussions about this throughout the show. Ben Leo, live from Washington, D.C., thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll see you throughout the evening for more reactions. OK, after the break, I'll bring you further reaction. And has the PM broken his silence yet? That's coming up in just a moment.
as a leading American supporter of strong independent Britain, I fully grasp why President Trump's direct talk on Greenland has stirred concern in the UK. But tariffs are a wake-up tool, not the end game. We are not adversaries. We are partners facing a shared world of real threats from Russia and China in the Arctic. The tariffs are a massive repudiation of a failed one world order. I'm distressed to see some on your panel questioning the British-American alliance. America cares deeply for Britain's future, but when you consider the alarm on this side of the Atlantic for the egregious assaults on free speech, and like me, the Trump administration is horrified for its current condition, Britain's current condition of managed decline under Starmer's Labour. Would that Trump could sanction Keir Starmer's Labour Party for its weak leadership, complacency on China, and woeful record on free speech instead of the whole nation. Alex, Trump's focus is straightforward strategic realism. Greenland is vital for national security, sitting at the heart of the North Atlantic with unmatched potential for missile defense like the Golden Dome, secure routes, and countering adversaries eyeing its minerals and position. The U.S. already carries the main burden through the Pitufik space base, our key outpost for surveillance and early warning, while Democrat, a solid ally, lacks the scale to fully match the investment needed in this fast-changing region. No one's pushing military invasion. If Denmark holds on to it, they must own the strategic challenges that come with it, which have consequences well beyond Denmark. And finally, a more secure Greenland under strengthened Western arrangements ultimately protects British, Western, and world interests too. Safer seas, better deterrence. Trump's style may be blunt, but his security instincts are sharp.
Lee, what potential implications would this have, let's just say, with China and Taiwan? What if China said, we want to buy Taiwan? Would the US be comfortable with that? It's a similar, I know it's not quite the same, but it's a similar-ish scenario. Does it set a precedent for superpowers to buy countries?
Well, I think it's a sound warning shot to China of what, Trump is prepared to do. And, look, no other world leaders are pushing back in this way. So, I think it will certainly give them pause in any ambitions to invade Taiwan. And, like so many have said, some even on your panel, Alex, this isn't about bullying or empire. It's about facing 21st century realities where Russia and China are aggressively expanding in the Arctic, icebreakers, minerals, routes that could shift global power. Trump isn't demanding conquest. He's calling for fair negotiation, as U.S. leaders have since the 1800s.
Lee, can I follow up on that? What evidence do we have that China and Russia are asserting their influence in the region at the moment?
Well, I think that we have evidence that China is extending its influence throughout the world. I saw a report this week that Harvard University has fallen down points in global prestige. I didn't see where UK universities are on that, but because China is aggressively engaging in a campaign in universities, and one thing that concerns me and certainly concerns the United States and Trump is Starmer's greenlighting of the super embassy, which some have called a spy embassy, so close to British financial and other critical resources. Clearly the opinion of Britain as a strategic partner has fallen deeply under Starmer's leadership, where, before it would have been unheard of for a U.S. president not to inform, not to take counsel with a British prime minister on, say, the invasion of Venezuela.
We've got to, unfortunately, we actually have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Lee Cohen. Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate your thoughts and opinions on this one.